You know those things we spend a lifetime avoiding because they sound like a lie, even to ourselves? Yeah. What happened during that winter of '97 at the Antarctic station is one of those things. And before you ask, yes, I've tried to forget it. But some days, when the wind hits my window just right, I'm pulled back there without meaning to. And then it gets hard to pretend nothing happened. Tell me something, have you ever had the feeling you were looking at something that didn't belong to our world? I'm not talking about fantasy, I'm talking about pure strangeness, the kind that makes your body tense up before your mind even understands why. I've felt it, and that's why my nights have never been the same since. Back then, I still believed Antarctica was just ice, routine, and a failing radio. A harsh place, sure, but predictable. We fool ourselves easily when we think we're in control. Today, at over 70 years old, I look back and think that maybe that was the only moment in my life when I truly felt we weren't alone out there. If you want to understand how it started, I'll explain. But it wasn't pretty, and it wasn't quick. That winter of '97, I knew the station well. It wasn't much. 3 main modules, 2 external walkways that always groaned in the wind, a shed for equipment, and a small lab where Reyes spent most of her time cataloguing whatever she found frozen outside. Life there revolved around simple habits. Wake up, check the generators, see if the radio had any chance of working, drink reheated coffee, and pray nothing broke in the middle of the night. That was it, day after day. I worked with telecommunications, but in winter, everyone did a bit of everything. Fix a jammed door, clean a filter, help Keller with the machines, listen to Marlowe complain because someone left their jacket too close to the heater. Nothing heroic, just what it took to keep everyone standing. Winter in Antarctica doesn't forgive mistakes. Forget one detail and it makes you pay. Marlowe was the kind of man who didn't raise his voice but made it very clear when something was out of place. He walked slowly down the halls with his hands behind his back. If he stopped and looked at you, it meant something needed to be done. Reyes was the opposite. She spoke fast, smiled easily, and seemed to depend on that energy not to collapse under the isolation. Keller was practical, the kind of guy who could fix anything with wire and tape, but who hated changes. Anything outside the usual made him tense. The routine was almost comfortable, in the strange sense of the word. You get used to the silence, to the constant hum of generators, to the smell of wet gear drying in the locker room. The station was our whole world. 3 weeks with no radio signal, 2 months without seeing the sun. 4 people trying to live as if they weren't in the most isolated place on the planet. For a long time, that's how things went. Cold, tasks, meals, short conversations, bed, repeated until you lose track of the days. I remember feeling safe inside the station during that phase. We thought we had control over everything. And maybe that's why what came next shook me so badly. We believed we knew the environment, believed Antarctica held no surprises. We were wrong, and we were about to find out. The first strange thing appeared in such an unremarkable way that none of us paid attention. It was a morning when the wind had stopped suddenly. In Antarctica, that always set me on alert. Silence. There isn't peace. It's a warning. I went out to check one of the antennas because the radio had completely died the night before, and I found some marks in the snow near the base of the eastern walkway. I can't explain the shape. It looked like a track, but not from any animal. There wasn't a pattern of steps. It was as if something had slid, but without disturbing enough snow to leave a continuous trail. Just a sequence of small, irregular depressions almost. Circular. The kind of thing you glance at and think, must be the wind. And that's exactly what I thought. Except the wind was completely still. Still in a way that made even the sound of my jacket seem too loud. When I went back inside, I mentioned it casually. Keller didn't like it. He barely spoke, but when something bothered him, his face gave it away. Reyes got curious and said she wanted to check later. Marlowe only nodded, like he was filing the information away for later. The next day, the marks were bigger, Not exactly in the same place, but spread toward the equipment shed. Reyes came down with me to look. She knelt, ran her fingers along the edge of one mark like she was feeling its texture, and simply said, "This isn't wind, and it isn't cracked ice." Then she went quiet. That silence bothered me. The third sign came as sound, or rather vibration. A faint tapping on the metal structure from outside, irregular, subtle, just enough that each of us felt it at different times. But no one wanted to say it out loud. We blamed everything except the obvious: metal expansion, generator fluctuations, temperature shifts. Anything worked. That's when Marlowe began checking the windows more often. Something he never did. Even without words, it was clear he was uneasy. No one wanted to admit something was approaching the station, but it was. Slowly, like it was studying us. The real shift happened on a night when the temperature dropped so fast, the air inside the station seemed thinner. I was checking cables in the central hallway when I heard Reyes call my name, in that low voice she used when she didn't want to scare anyone. I went to the observation room and saw her and Marlowe standing by the narrow window overlooking the external storage shed. They weren't speaking, just staring. It took me a moment to understand. Out there, at the edge of the floodlight, something was standing still. You couldn't make out its shape. It was small, low to the ground, about 10 meters from the shed door. The light didn't reach far enough to reveal it fully, but you could tell it wasn't just a shadow. It had mass. It was something, still as if waiting for us to react. Keller arrived moments later, wrench still in hand. I had never seen that man step back from any animal, but that night, he did. When we blinked, the thing was gone. It didn't run, it didn't leave tracks, it was simply no longer there. And the wind returned immediately, like it had been holding its breath. The next morning, things worsened. At the door of the shed, right in the center, there was a deeper mark in the snow. Not a footprint, not a fall. More like something had rested there for a few minutes and then lifted off. Reyes studied it the way she studied frozen remains, and finally said something that still echoes in my mind. This isn't something hiding. It's something trying to get closer. Things changed after that. Everyone slept badly. The radio stayed dead, and every vibration in the metal made someone wake up thinking the thing had returned. Around that time, I realized this story would never leave me in peace. If you're still with me, keep going slowly. These memories get heavier as they move forward. When something defies what we know, the first reaction isn't fear, it's denial. And that's what consumed the station over the next days. Marlowe insisted it could be a small animal trapped in the area, even knowing nothing lived there at that time of year. Reyes suggested a block of ice rolling in the wind, even though we all saw the shape standing still. Keller blamed faulty lighting, though he didn't believe it. I tried convincing myself it was exhaustion, routine, isolation, dead radios, anything that might skew perception. But denial didn't change anything. The marks came back, the vibrations continued, and slowly we each started feeling a physical discomfort, like the air carried something that didn't belong. The breaking point came when Reyes found a hardened cluster of snow on the station's outer wall. Inside the ice, illuminated under the lab light, there was a tiny fragment of material that didn't look organic. It shone strangely, as if the light didn't reflect correctly. Not metal, not stone. Something else. That's when Marlowe asked for my personal opinion, something he never did. He wanted to know whether I thought it was related to what we saw outside. I hesitated, then said yes. After that, the station grew even quieter. The feeling wasn't that something was circling us. It was that something was about to enter. And before I go on, let me warn you, from here on, the story doesn't get lighter. That night, no one slept well. I woke up, certain someone was in my room, even though I knew it was impossible. The station felt smaller, like the walls had moved closer. It wasn't the usual isolation. It was different. Around 3 in the morning, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not human ones. Lighter, sharper, shorter, like something touching the ground only with its tips. I opened my door just a crack. The corridor was dim, lit only by the faint glow from the machine room. And then I saw it, a small shadow moving along the wall, heading toward the lab. Not walking, sliding, with tiny interruptions like it was adjusting its position constantly. I froze, couldn't call anyone. I only watched it turn the corner and vanish. When I could move again, I woke Keller. He'd heard it too. We woke Marlowe and Reyes, and the four of us followed in silence, the air tightening around us. The lab door was ajar, wrong, because Marlowe always shut it. Inside, the smell was off, cold, damp, metallic, and then we saw it. On the bench, where Reyes had left the fragment, something was standing. Small, maybe the size of a cat, but without a defined shape. Its body looked like thin, overlapping plates, seamless, no fur, no feathers, no visible breathing. But you could feel it was aware of us. It turned toward us, slowly. No eyes, just a dark line across the front like a slit. And I felt something I can't explain. Not threat, not fear, observation. It was studying us the way we'd study a strange device found in the ice. Reyes stepped forward. Marlowe held her back. The creature receded in a movement so fast and silent it seemed to blink out of existence. Before anyone reacted, it was gone. From that moment, the station stopped being a shelter. It became a border, and we were trapped on the wrong side of it. After the lab incident, no one said it aloud, but we all knew we couldn't try to understand it up close anymore. We had to protect ourselves, though we didn't know from what. It hadn't attacked, it hadn't threatened, but its presence changed the station, like every centimeter of metal sensed something foreign inside. Marlowe made a plan. I checked doors and locks. Keller stayed with the generators. Reyes gathered samples and records. Marlowe patrolled the modules. While walking the halls, I felt pockets of freezing air, sudden drops of temperature followed by static crawling up my neck. The same sensation I felt when the creature faced us. Then I found a small indentation on a metal door, not a scratch, not a dent. A controlled pressure, bending the steel inward. That terrified me. Reyes soon found another plate fragment, broken, revealing a translucent, resin-like interior. "This isn't a normal living being," she whispered. "It's something else." Moments later, Keller reported a brief blackout, like a shadow passing over the generator panel. That's when Marlowe made the decision no one wanted. The creature wasn't circling anymore. It was testing us, and the structure. We had to force it out. But how do you repel something that doesn't follow any rules of our world? That's when fear became certainty. This all happened over 25 years ago. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, sometimes like another life. The creature never returned after that final night. Marlowe came up with a crude plan. Open the east module briefly, let a violent blast of cold rush in, disrupt the environment the creature was observing. It worked, or seemed to. The vibrations stopped, the cold spots vanished. The snow outside looked untouched by anything unusual. When the summer team arrived months later, they didn't believe much. They laughed, took minimal notes, and carried on. But we four were never the same. Back then, I tried rationalizing it. Today, at my age, I simply accept. We saw something not from this planet, and that whatever it was only watching, observing, trying to understand us. And if you stayed with me this far, do me one favor. Leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Not for me, but so this story doesn't vanish like so many others no one believed.